We're going to change the rear brake pads on a 2014 Audi A8, and it's really a pretty simple process, but there's a couple things that you need to do before you actually will take the wheel off. First thing you'll need to do is go inside the car and put the car into tire change mode, which will essentially just locks the air suspension, so when you jack it up, it doesn't try and overinflate the bags. And then you also have to electronically retract the calipers using a scan tool. Now, before I take this off the ground, I'm just going to put a 90-degree pick in the lug cover and then pull that off. Before I lift it, I'll break the lug nuts loose with a 17mm. I'll jack it up on the jack point from the side of the car. Put a jack stand on the frame rail right here. Remove the lug nuts and remove the wheel. Remove the T30 Torx that holds the rotor in place. Take your time getting to these bolts. You definitely don't want to strip them. They really became a nightmare if you do. We'll give it a tap to break any of that rust loose. We'll disconnect all of the sensors that are connected to the caliper. There's one right here, which is controlling the electronic e-brake. Take a 90-degree pick and put it up in the front end of the connector and lift up on the tab that holds it in place and then pull it out, just like that. What you're doing when you stick this pick in here is you stick it in and you're pushing down on that tab, which releases it from the tab on the connector. We're gonna do the same thing right here. This connector twists out. You just need to lift up on this tab. Okay, and that loosens it. Now you can twist it 90 degrees and then work it out of the bracket. And there we go. Pop the cover off the bleeder valve. Pull this out of there, put that back on. Grab a 13mm and a 15mm. Break this nut loose with a 13. And then once you break it loose, you're gonna have a 15 to hold the other side of the bolt. And preferably find the thinnest 15 you can, because you don't have much room in between the actual caliper and the guide pin. So the thinnest wrench you can to hold it still. This one only actually fits on about halfway, but that's enough to start turning this separately. Love these little stubby ratcheting wrenches. It makes it a lot quicker. Same thing on the bottom. Start to carefully pry off the caliper. And just keep working it off. There we go. Pull off this wear sensor and put it through the caliper. Inspect the rubber boot here. Make sure there's no damage to it and everything is sealed. And of course, don't hang the caliper on the hose. Just set it on top here or hook it up with a wire and just some way secure it so it's not under stress. Pull off the old pads. If need be, and you are going to change the rotor, which in this case I don't need to, it's in fine condition, you can actually take the rotor off without taking the caliper bracket off. It's actually a really great design. You just take that screw out and this whole rotor will shift sideways, and then you can slide it out and put your new one in. You almost never need to take off this bracket. Pull the rotor off. In fact, it makes it really easy. We just gotta pull it sideways. Great design here is we almost never need to remove this caliper bracket. We can just take the rotor, pull it off, put it a little bit sideways, and it just slides right out, and we could slide a new one in or reuse the old one. We'll remove the old hardware, and we'll of course make sure it's really clean underneath it before we put new stuff in. Just gonna spray a little bit of cleaner in there. It really just helps keep the dust down. This is a really important step if you want your pads to fit right whenever everything goes back together. It only takes a couple minutes, but it really can save a lot of heartache, especially if there's a lot of corrosion in there. You use a retractor tool to retract the piston. And in this case, this doesn't need to spin to retract since we already retracted it electronically through the computer. So this just pushes straight back like a normal piston. Now when we retract the piston, everything should go back very smooth. There shouldn't be any hesitation. Just take it back nice and slow and retract it all the way till it seats. When you feel that tighten up, go ahead and loosen it and remove the tool. Cleaning the guide pins and re-greasing them is a super important step. I always like to just check and feel how they do feel before I take them out, and they feel great. Moves really smoothly and there's no resistance, but we're gonna put fresh grease in there. Definitely what I like to see. Looks like it was originally a purple grease that was in there. And the rest of this is kind of turned gray, but even though it looks good, always gonna put new grease in. Put fresh grease on both pins. Even if it might feel the same with fresh grease, it's a super important step that you don't want to overlook. The new hardware that came with my brake pads doesn't really fit quite right, and honestly I like the older ones better. So this is what the old ones look like. I'm just taking my time and cleaning them up. This is after just spending a little bit of time on the wire wheel, just making sure it's real clean. We're going to put new fresh grease on here and there's no problem reusing these. So these all cleaned up, reinstall them. And they slip right in. Take our grease, get it in the slide joints. Take a little bit of time and clean up the hub here, make sure it's real clean, and then put a layer of anti-seize on it. At least personal preference, I've always put anti-seize on the hubs because even when I took this one apart, that rotor was seized on there and I had to pound it off. Just a little bit goes a long way and it makes it easier the next time you do it. Put the rotor in. Always load up this little screw that holds the rotor in with anti-seize. And this thing doesn't need to be real tight. It's not like it's gonna fall out. There's a wheel in front of it. Put a bit of grease on the ears of the pads as well. And put the pads in place. Something that's probably the most important thing about putting these new pads in is that they move smoothly. Now, if it's super hard to put it in, you have to tap it in with a hammer or pry it in with a screwdriver. It's way too tight. These are supposed to be able to move nice and even. If it's so tight, you're gonna wear these pads out way before they should because it's gonna keep pressing it in there way tighter. So if you do happen to put the pad on and it's tight, maybe you wanna take these shims out, make sure you cleaned underneath them well enough. There's no rust, there's no corrosion, making it tighter. If you know that everything's clean, then you can take these ears, these tabs, and grind them as you need so that they fit a little better. And you want to put a new wear sensor in, especially if one of these connections is broken. In this case, I don't have a new one, so I'm going to put the old one back in until I have a new one that comes in here in a couple days. So it's a really easy thing to replace. You can do this with the caliper on. All you'll need to do to put a new one on is take the wheel off. Put the caliper on. Put the caliper bolts back in. And tighten these up. Once you get this pretty well tight, you don't need to hold this on the other side with a wrench. You can just tighten that up. Put the wear sensor in. When you plug in your wear sensor, it's easier, of course, is if it's out of the bracket. So plug these together, rotate it 90 degrees so this tab is facing that way. Slide it into the bracket. It's a little tight, and then twist it 90 degrees till that slot fits into the hole again. Plug in the e-brake. Do a once over right here. Make sure everything moves smooth. Make sure you tightened all of your bolts. Make sure that you put this cable back in its tie down so it stays where it should. Looking good. Reinstall the wheel. Line up the holes. Put your lug studs back in. Tighten up the lug nuts before you put the car down. We're going to torque these to 90 foot-pounds, drive it, and then re-torque it. It's an important step to torque it, drive it, and then torque it again. You'll typically get a little bit of settling in the wheels, and you'll actually be able to tighten them just a little bit more. So we need to put the pistons back in, re-engage them into the brake pads. So I'm using OBD11 for this. In OBD11, what I'll do is click on the car once everything's connected. And this is the same way that I retracted the pistons. Hit apps, that load, go over to workshop at the top, and then scroll down a little bit till you see brake pad replacement. Click on that, and then in this menu here you can select the value, and I'm going to go close because I just put the new pads back in, everything's buttoned back up, the wheels are on. Hit close, hold the check mark, and what you'll hear soon is those motors re-engage the pads. Let them tighten up, it's all good. Now we'll test that we can cycle the parking brake, so I'll push it down. Okay, and then I'll pull it back up. Okay, so that just engaged it. Let's disengage it, put my foot on the brake. Disengage, let's re-engage it one more time. Okay, put my foot on the brake, disengage, sounds good. The parking brake light that was on the dash has gone away now, so let's go ahead and start it up and drive it. And before we drive it, go into the car systems menu, Go over to servicing and checks, go down to air suspension tire change and change that back to off. With all that, we can go ahead and take it for a drive. Test drive went good, and I'll retorque the wheels, getting some movement. That's how you change the brakes on a 2014 Audi A8, or it'll be the same thing for an S8.